the fact that if you wanted to find a ninja today, go talk to Special Forces guys. Go talk to guys who are, that's what the modern version of these things would be. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that now we're taking the warriors of the past and we're asking what would they be, were they to have access to today's technology? Were they to have access to today's understandings? Were they to be placed in today's tactical arena? Because I think that the question of what is it to place someone between life and death and to have them put their skills and their hearts and minds in that kind of furnace, in that kind of pressure cooker, is completely valid. It's going to be just as valid when the warriors come marching home from Iraq and we start dealing with the post-traumatic stress syndrome. The technologies that were being used for Mayan warriors to help bring them back to the farms after they'd gone off to fight, well, that's the kind of stuff we need to look at. How do you turn that animal in your head on and then have it do terrible things, and then turn it off again so that it can hold a baby and be soft and gentle and loving and not be haunted with the memories of what it had to do in order to protect its homeland? These are good, honorable men and women. The same thing is going to apply to our police officers. The same thing applies to our corrections officers. How do you put them in these contexts and then have them come back home and love their children? These questions go beyond the question of how do you just convey force to a target or how do you deny force to a target. And to me, that's the challenge of the future, is to continue to apply physics and advanced understandings of psychology and neurophysiology and neurofeedback and biofeedback to replicate the states that Zen monks could go into where they could access these deep powers, and also allow them to stay honorable, moral human beings who can kill without hatred, who can stay honorable in the midst of dishonor, who can do what a warrior has to do even if the politicians are crazy. These, to me, are the challenges of the future. I could care less. I mean, like, just in terms of just moving your arms and legs rapidly, any corner mech taekwondo school can teach you that, let alone the really, a really great taekwondo school. If you go to Korea or something like that, any corner school can teach you basic physical motion. The things that are more interesting to me is how do you make better human beings, and to what degree can the martial arts contribute to that?
Again, another deep breath on my end. You've talked about failing successfully. What do you mean when you talk about failing successfully?
Well, I mean, on a physiological level, if you're lifting weights, you lift iron until you reach muscle failure. That's the way you communicate to your brain that it needs to grow. If you don't understand that failure is a natural part of the cycle of growth, then you'll interpret failure as meaning that you can't do it and that you shouldn't do it. And that's one of the primary things that we have to teach our children, is that failure means nothing other than you pushed yourself to the edge, now center yourself again, and your edge will expand. That's nice. It doesn't mean anything ultimately except that you were one of the people with the courage to get out in the arena and try. Failure is an absolutely vital part of the equation of growth.
What's the most immediate thing, the most positive thing a person can do, in your opinion, to change their life in a positive direction? Right now, when they stand up out of the chair, what are they going to do?
Have well-defined written goals for the next 5 years of their lives in all three major arenas: body, mind, and spirit. Write them down. Written goals are more important than anything. The other thing that they can do is find some discipline somewhere that can teach them how to take action in spite of the voices in their heads. Those two things, well-defined written goals and knowing how to take action despite the voices in your heads, will get you all the way through life.
Let's take a minute and talk about the 5-minute miracle.
Sure.
I touched on that in the intro. What is it? Where does it come from?
Well, it comes from a Russian discipline. It comes from actually a century of Russian research into indigenous health systems in the Ural Mountains. I learned some of those techniques, most of those techniques, from Scott Sonnen, who's a Sambo champion and coach and teaches maximal human performance. And a couple of the smaller concepts I got from Pavel Tsatsouline, who does the kettlebell thing. And basically, it's a combination of two different ideas. One is the idea of moving in such a way that your diaphragm is compressed by the muscular motion so that you create an exhalation that same thing, sort of a performance breathing idea, can be applied to weight training and running and martial arts and other things. And the other is a concept called neurosynaptic facilitation, where if you're trying to learn a skill, whether it's piano playing or martial arts skill or anything else, the best way to learn it is to practice it multiple times during the day for very short time periods. So what I realized was that it was possible to combine these two things and to give people a very specific exercise that teaches them how to breathe properly, that they can then take out into their world and practice it when they're walking or whatever. And they practice that technique 5 times a day for 60 seconds. So I'm being very honest, the 5-minute miracle does only take 5 minutes a day, but it's not 5 minutes all at one time. It's 5 60-second bursts. And once you've learned the technique, then you have the obligation to place yourself under greater and greater amounts of stress. Because as I said at the beginning, I think that your ability to be excellent in life is going to be in direct proportion to your capacity to maintain flow under stress. You have to maintain grace under pressure. That's what it's all about. And you can either do that indirectly by just letting life happen to you and kind of figuring it out, or you can do it directly by studying disciplines like martial arts and yoga and Zen meditation and other things like that. This is why these technologies are generative in the sense of having application to more than just a specific arena.
You often talk about family and relationships in your blog, which is outstanding, and I recommend it. And I'm gonna give that out right now to
liferight.com. Go LIFEWRITE.com. You'll find the links to everything I do.
Right, and your Darkush blog spot is on there.
That's right.
Can you give us a top line on how you see relationships? What the strength?
I believe that our relationship, especially our most intimate relationship, my relationship with my wife, to be most specific, or person's relationship with their significant other, is a mirror for your own soul and your own self-concept. If you don't see the face of the divine in the person that you're sleeping with, then you're kidding yourself about your spiritual development. If you can't take responsibility for the relationships you've had in the course of your life, if you're one of these people who says, all women are X or all men are Y, you're completely missing the point. Every relationship in your life, you were doing the best you could. If you could have done any better, you would have. That person you're with, that's the best you can do. If you don't like what you see there, you need to grow up and heal. You need to do something for yourself, because it is not the fault. There are plenty of good women, plenty of good men in the world. If you can't get one of them, it's your problem.
Well, that was pretty quick.
It's as simple as that.
Young man, yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Life is too short for lies. There are too many people who are very smart and cannot get any of the things they want out of life because they're coddling their egos with inaccurate reality maps. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Life is cruel. It really is. But life doesn't care whether you're hurt or not. Life doesn't care whether you get the stuff you want or not. It's your responsibility to step forward and get it. And if you're not willing to step forward, life will simply pass you by. And it's tragic, and I'm sorry about that. But it's up to you to make yourself happy. And if the way to know whether or not your reality map is accurate is you look at your career, you look at your relationships, and you look at your health, your physical body, and you take responsibility for what you see. You own it, and that will be painful. So you don't have to confess to anybody else what you see going on there, but your relationships and your body and your career are the result of decisions you have made. Your decisions are based upon your values, your beliefs, your behaviors. These things have to do with who we are and how we see ourselves. And if you cannot own that, if you go through your life being a child, saying it's society or it's my parents or it's this or it's that, your whole life will simply pass you by, and it is tragic. It is tragic because these people are taking on adult responsibilities. They're having children. They're having careers. They're teaching other people, and they themselves are not adults.
Okay, another deep breath.
Huh?
Yeah. Well, how many times do you see that walking down the street?
Absolutely. The people who say, well, I can't lose weight. I have a slow metabolism. That's nice. I was born in poverty, and I could spend my entire life complaining that I was born in poverty, or I could work harder and get out of it. And you have a slow metabolism, you're going to have to work harder than somebody with a fast metabolism. I'm sorry about that, but it's simply the truth.